Hello everybody, welcome back to Richmond. In this video we're going to create some scenery. So we've built some scenery, the basic hillside, using pieces of 25mm thick expanded polystyrene insulation board, which was left over from when I insulated the garage last year. So what we'll do is we're going to use plaster bandage as a base to make a nice hard shell for the hillside, and then we're going to paint it. We're going to add some soil, and then we're going to cover that with scatter. So sit back and relax and enjoy the video. So the first thing we do is cover up those unsightly holes in the baseboard. Now you may remember from earlier videos, the large hole was where my turntable originally sat, and the smaller holes were for point motors. When I first built the layout, unfortunately due to space constraints, I had to put the loco shed on that side of the line, which was the wrong side. And then after moving to the garage, I was able to move it to the correct side of the line, and now I have to cover it up. So I'm using a cornflake packet cut up just to hide the big holes. And as you can see there, I am marking out where to put my glue. And I won't bore you with having to put the glue down. I think you all know how to glue things down. So let's move on. So now the glue has dried on the cornflake packets, and we've put that corner of the hillside back into position. And now I'm going to cut up strips of plaster bandage and then apply them onto the hillside. So having cut up one roll of plaster bandage, we're going to start by soaking it in some warm water, and then we only soak it for a second or two, and then we place it on the hillside, and it overlaps the bottom of the hillside a little bit just to give a bit of a transition to the ground. And what we'll do is we'll carry on soaking pieces of plaster bandage until we've used up the roll, and then we'll start on another one. So like I say, all it is, we just soak the plaster bandage in the warm water. The warm water is so that it cures quicker, or sets quicker rather. If you use cold water, it takes forever to dry and set. In warm water, it takes less time. It's taken more time in the garage due to the temperature. Once I turn the heater off, it stays warm in there for a while, but then obviously without the heat source it goes cold. So even with the insulation and the best will in the world, the temperature is going to drop. And it did take a couple of days to set completely. So I'll leave you with this, watching me apply the plaster bandage. So here we are, just over a day later, and the plaster bandage is set to a nice hard shell. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the plaster bandage a browny sort of earthy colour, and for this I'm using a shade called Bogota, I believe it's called. It's one of B&Q's sort of tester pots. I used sort of 3 or 4 tester pots, so I think I probably should have bought a full tin of paint for it, because it didn't go very far at all. But anyway, so I'm covering all the plaster bandage with the brown paint, and also the flat piece of ground where we've put those cornflake packets to hide the holes, because that will be sort of part of the grassy area as well. So it takes a while, so we'll see you when I've done. So we've got some soil from the garden. We've left it in the garage overnight to properly dry out, and now we're just going to gently sieve it into the bowl, just so we make it into a fine powder that will be suitable to add to the hillside. So we just gently shake the sieve or tap it against the other hand. It does take a very, very long time, so I won't bore you with making you sit through 40 minutes of me sieving and mashing up soil to get it into a powder. You can see in the bowl there's already some powder in there, so it doesn't take long for the first bits to start sort of breaking down, but the larger pieces do take a bit longer, and I had to start crushing them up in the bowl, and there was quite a few stones I had to remove as well. But you get a general idea, and then in a minute we'll sprinkle it onto the hillside. Okay, so the soil's sieved, and what we're doing here was just putting the signal box back in place and testing clearances, so I've not moved it too close to the line. So we're just running one of my longer coaches, which is the Mark 1, just past the signal box, just to make sure that it's in position, and nothing catches, so that's fine. So then what I'm doing is marking out the rough position of the signal box with a marker pen, just so that I know where not to apply glue. I don't know why I marked out the front. I think I was going to put soil and that down around the front of the signal box, but I thought better of it. Probably spread some loose ballast and stuff on there. So that's the signal box position marked out, and we're just making sure that it's all sort of the right shape and size. So what we're doing now is we're just spreading out some neat PVA glue onto the hillside, and this is just some cheap PVA from Wilko's, the sort of stuff you buy for your kids to use. And then we're going to use another equally cheap or cheaper paintbrush just to spread it out. There's no point ruining a good expensive paintbrush with this job. So we just make sure that the PVA gets into all areas that we want to spread the soil out on. If we missed anything, we can change it at a later date. It does take a good old while to spread the PVA out. For some reason, I did it in stages, just so that if I got called away, the PVA wouldn't all dry and it'd be wasted. And just made sure that it was all nicely spread out. I should have maybe diluted it a little bit just to make it a little bit more easy to spread, but I thought that might take longer to dry. But I've tried spreading it out as best I can. I think it got a little bit on the ballast at one point, but it actually looks quite good when it all dried, as you'll see shortly. So no need to bore you with me spreading the PVA out. Let's skip forward and I'll show you applying the soil. So we put the soil back in the plastic tub, and we just basically gently shake some soil out onto the glue. Doesn't matter if we make too much mess, we can clean it up with a paintbrush later. So it's just ensuring that there's some coverage, or a bit more coverage, just to the edge almost of the area that I've put the glue down on. And then after that, we'll gently spread it out with a paintbrush to make sure that everything is covered. I did actually use all the soil that was in that batch, covering this one little bit, so I had to go and get some more soil, as you'll see shortly. But we just ensure a really good coverage, and then, like I say, we can spread it out with a paintbrush afterwards. So the area that I'm spreading soil on now, at the top of that hillside will be the ruins of St Martin's Priory, which I have still to construct, which will possibly be a job for this week. And you can see we've almost used up the soil. I think I put too much soil down and I ended up putting more glue down, just brushing the soil over, but none of it went to waste. So it wasn't like it cost anything, it was from the garden. So don't worry about using too much, you can always chuck it back on the garden or use it to sort of level your lawn or whatever. So that was about as far as I got with the soil that I'd sieved. I had to do a bit more, but you get the gist of what I'm doing. So it's paint the PVA on with a cheap paintbrush and then spread the soil over it. And just gently spread the soil with another paintbrush, just so the glue grabs all of it and it soaks in. And then when it dries, it looks absolutely fantastic. Now, unfortunately, I forgot to video me applying the scatter, but I'm sure there are other videos available online and on YouTube that will show you how to apply scatter. Basically, we did exactly the same as Richard from New Junction did, which is I've done exactly the same as what he's done on his how-to videos. So when the soil's all dry and the glue's set and gone off, we make a glue, water and ferroliquid mix. So it's 1 part PVA to 5 parts water and just a little splash of ferroliquid to break down the surface tension. Mix it all up, put it in like a misting spray bottle, and then spray that on top of the soil, give it a good soaking, and then exactly the same as we put the soil down, we just shake the scatter out and spread it around either by hand or with a little paintbrush. Now what I did was I just dumped it all on, and then as you'll see in a moment, I hoovered up the excess. I've got a little dust buster handheld vacuum cleaner. I made sure it was empty and clean, and I just hoovered the excess scatter up, and I can reuse that at a later time. So as mentioned previously, I forgot to record myself applying the scatter, so we just jumped forward to me hoovering up the excess. So I had to be really, really careful here that I didn't catch the scatter with the hoover head, as the glue was still quite wet. I did in a couple of places, but all I did was just spray a bit more glue down and then just cover it with a bit more scatter. And I think the end result is quite worth it. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So here's the end result. The glue is still wet at this moment, and this was immediately after I'd finished applying it and hoovering up the excess. But it does look quite good. I'm very pleased with it. And now comes the hard part of making sure it all blends into the back seam when that arrives. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and you found it informative. Any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And as usual, if you do like the video, please click the like button, give it the thumbs up, and feel free to leave any comments. And I'll leave you with this shot of my DMU standing at a signal, which I've just placed there for effect. Bye for now.